Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with a bit of a different video today. This one I'm going to be talking about my review slash thoughts on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of Dimensions movie that has only in the past couple of days been released in English in like America and stuff like that, and I did indeed go to one of the few showings that were available here in Ireland. So yeah, I haven't done a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content on my channel. I think I have some stuff up there from like my Airspeed Plays TCG series, and I've probably said on like Twitter and Tumblr and stuff like that I've recently gotten back into kind of playing the game a bit more kind of recently. So yeah, I just want to do a review on this movie because I have seen the original anime and I actually recently just rewatched it as well, and this movie got me really excited, especially the like set that came out, the actual of the cars from the movie and stuff like that. So yeah, let's just get straight into this. This is going to be a full spoiler review because I really don't see the point in talking about it without actually just mentioning the actual details. So yeah, let's just jump straight in. The first thing I want to say is that it was interesting that in many ways this was like Kaiba's movie. He really was the one who kind of created this plot, kind of got it going. Like, we have our villain, Yugi is in the movie, of course, but Kaiba is really like, I think, the core of at least the first like half to three quarters of the movie, in that it plays off the ending of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime like pretty perfectly, with the idea that he wasn't the one who dueled Atem just before Atem left. It was Yugi. And Kaiba kind of began to accept a lot of his kind of connection to ancient Egypt and stuff like that towards the end, and accept that the person that he was rivals with as a duelist was Atem, the pharaoh, and perhaps not as much Yugi. And so I think in many ways some of the plot of this movie is you've seen the obsession that he has of him wanting to get a victory over Atem that wasn't like cheating and attempting to commit suicide to win. That this movie is him doing everything he can to get Atem back. The whole idea of him trying to get all the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle to reassemble it, to revive the Pharaoh, force Yugi to wear the puzzle, and kind of so he can duel Atem again. That's like the core of kind of what starts this. And then the villain has a connection to that because they established this 8th Millennium item that only becomes active once the Pharaoh has kind of moved on. So basically once the 7 Millennium items are used and kind of done, the 8th one activates, and then they are active until the Pharaoh potentially returns again. And we deal with the villain kind of trying to stop that from happening because his powers relating to the 8th Millennium item will obviously turn off if that's the case. And then obviously Agame, or Diva is his actual name, as the villain. Interesting in that they kind of straight away say like he's been in their class, but they're not exactly sure. They don't really remember him all that much. So kind of some mind manipulation stuff going on here, but primarily that he is there because he wants revenge against basically he wants revenge against kind of everyone to some degree, but primarily Bakura, because obviously he begins to realize that he learns over the course of the movie that it was the dark spirit of the Millennium Ring that was the one who killed his mentor, and his mentor is revealed to be Shadi from the like original series when he was still alive. So this movie kind of full-on confirms to us that Shadi, his appearances in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime were actually him as like a ghost, which we kind of knew, but this just confirmed that he was actually killed because we finally see that backstory. We get Bakura's backstory here for the first time as well. And I think to me, that was the most surprising thing about this movie, that it was so plot heavy. That like, yes, there was action and duels and a lot of new cards and stuff like that, but there was a plot to this thing. Like, it was 2 hours 10 minutes long, the movie, and there was a lot of detail to it. They give us the story of how Bakura got the Millennium Ring, establishing that his father was obsessed with finding it. His father was basically, killed by the Millennium Ring prior to Bakura taking it, and then the spirit of the ring saw Bakura as a good host, and then in the process of like how Bakura's father got the ring, he encountered Shadi and all of the kids that Shadi had kind of protected, and that was the moment when Shadi was killed, and the kind of basically the 8th Millennium item, the Plana, or the Millennium Cube, whatever you want to call it, was passed on to Diva. And so you can see his kind of anger after this point to kind of stop that from happening, use the Millennium Cube and its power to take revenge against everyone else. So that's the kind of core of the villain's plot. Going back to Kaiba, though, again, like, his obsession with trying to kind of defeat Atem, resurrect Atem, and duel him and defeat him. You see him duel a kind of hologram version of Atem, which is kind of built, his dueling style is built from Kaiba's memories, but even though he defeats him in this kind of duel that we basically see, he's not happy because it's not the real Atem. He may know all of the cards in Yugi's deck and stuff like that, but it's not the real Atem, and it doesn't count. And he just has to make the puzzle and make this happen. But that leads into basically Yugi's involvement in the movie, in that this movie, in a way, is the one that where Kaiba finally comes to realize that Yugi, little Yugi, is actually a worthy rival for him as well. That yes, his main rivalry is with Atem, and that's always going to be someone that Kaiba wants to defeat. But that I think especially like some of the moments that in this movie, Kaiba really comes to respect Yugi as a duelist as well, and kind of be like, okay, I still want to fight Atem, but just as a kind of ongoing rivalry, Yugi is perfectly fine as well. So that's what I liked here. Like, Yugi, in many ways, like, wasn't really that main of a character. His involvement only comes in later on when Agami, Diva's sister, has a piece of the puzzle and kind of gives it to Yugi to kind of look after, because her brother is becoming obsessed with revenge and kind of going against their master's wishes. And she gives the other piece of the puzzle to Yugi, leading to, I suppose, the main plot point of the movie being that, like, Agami has one part of the puzzle, Yugi has one part of the puzzle, and Kaiba has the rest. He creates this tournament to mainly advertise this new duel disc that he's making, but the tournament is basically winner wins all pieces of the puzzle. And so he's planning to win all of them as well. And it's like, obviously he's more focused on just dueling Atem, his own goals, the kind of selfish goals, and not really necessarily putting the whole, like, Agami is trying to basically change the dimension and basically rebuild the world into a kind of the way kind of Zork wants it to. Obviously Zork is the main villain of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the end. Yeah, so the big moments for Yugi are, of course, when you get to this tournament moment. Kaiba basically is commanding everything. He's like, okay, I'm in charge here. I'm going to duel Agami first, then I'll duel Yugi, and that's how I'll win the pieces. But Yugi kind of steps up and is just like, no, I need to do this. I need to do this because the actual Bakura has been sent to a different dimension by Agami. I am going right now. I don't care what you say, Kaiba. I am going to duel Agami first. And he completely stands up to Kaiba and basically just kind of threatens that, like, look, if you don't make this happen, I'm leaving. I don't care what you do or anything like that. I'm leaving unless you let me have this duel first. And Kaiba gives in to Yugi. And it's this big moment of, like, little Yugi would never have really done that in the actual anime. And it kind of shows the effect that Atem has had on Yugi and the confidence that Yugi has gained since then and all of the time with Atem. And it's one of those big moments that makes Kaiba respect little Yugi, that he's not just a kind of pushover anymore. He wins that duel, pretty interesting one in that you get to see a lot of new cards, but he wins this one in a really interesting way in that it's a 3-card combo using these 3 cards. So we get Dimension Sphinx, Dimension Guardian, and also Dimension Mirage. So this is interesting because it's a 3-card combo that's an infinite loop. And the way it basically works is that the situation that you have to have on board is that your opponent is basically attacking one of your monsters and is going to do a decent amount of life point damage to you. So what these cards basically do is Dimension Guardian, basically you target one of your monsters, it can't be destroyed by battle, it's continuous. So that stops your monster from being destroyed. Dimension Sphinx basically means that, like, if you're going to take damage from an attack monster to monster, the life point damage comes out of your opponent instead of you. And then the other one is that this is the kind of actual loop card, Mirage. Um, if you're about to take life point damage, and I'll just read it actually. At the end of damage step, when it attacks a monster, but the attack target was not destroyed by the battle, you can banish one monster from your graveyard. It must attack again in a row. So the idea basically being here is that you make your monster immune to battle, immune to being destroyed by battle. You make it so that your opponent loses all the life point damage that you would take, and then you force that monster to keep attacking over and over again. The only part of the difference in the anime compared to here is that they don't seem to do the part of the effect where Dimension Mirage requires you to banish one monster from your graveyard to actually keep the combo going. But it still would have worked that way because Yugi had tons of cards in the graveyard at that point in time. But just interesting that they again have an infinite loop to show that Yugi is still the best ranked duelist in the game. Other notable cards that they use are, of course, the new arts of Dark Magician and Blue Eyes. In addition to the big card that kind of basically defeats the villain at the end, and we get our big moment where we do actually see a 10. That one of the big parts in this movie is basically that Yugi reassembles the puzzle in the middle of his duel with Kaiba, and basically what happens is that nothing happens, and it's meant to be this big moment of like Kaiba's dream, his quest has been for nothing, and Yugi just kind of showing that, look, I've dealt with this, that Atem is gone and he won't come back, and Kaiba has to kind of come to terms with this as well. But then when their duel is interrupted and they have to face Agami possessed by basically the spirit of the ring, the Zork and stuff like that, and Yugi and Kaiba team up, Kaiba takes the hit for little Yugi, which is a big moment of respect between the two, that he lets Yugi be the one to kind of end the battle and is kind of, sent to a different dimension, killed in that moment. And the big moment at the end comes down to it. Yugi's basically about to lose, and he goes for a last heart of the cards draw to basically try and win the match. And this is when Atem does return, and he's the one who basically just finishes off this thing. It's basically just like Atem helps Yugi with one last draw, one last heart of the cards moment. And the monster that they draw is Palladium Oracle Mahad. Now, this is an interesting one because obviously Mahad was obviously one of the main people that was in Atem's kind of court as pharaoh back in ancient Egypt, and he's the one who eventually becomes the Dark Magician after being kind of killed by Bandit King Bakura. And so they finally made an actual card out of it, and the effect is interesting. They make it a big kind of just like action moment in the show and don't really explain what the effect is. But it says, when you draw this card, you can reveal this card, special summon it from your hand. If this card battles a dark monster, its attack is doubled during the damage step only. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Dark Magician from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So I think they just used the first two effects. He draws it, special summons it, doubles its attack. 5,000 I think goes over like the 4,000 attack that the end monster had, and that's how they win the duel in the end. So really, really cool kind of thematic kind of card choices here at the end of the kind of duel. The one kind of tease moment is, of course, Yugi versus Kaiba just prior to that big kind of end duel happening. It looks like Yugi's about to win, but then Kaiba has a face down, but you kind of close up on like Kaiba's face and you kind of question like, is he going to use it or not? Like, is he going to get this victory, or is Yugi actually going to defeat him? And it's this weird one where like it's unsatisfying because you don't get the result of the duel, but at the same time it's almost more interesting to try and interpret how Kaiba was feeling at that moment. Is he happy because now he suddenly has someone else who is able to defeat him and his face down wasn't going to work? Is he just happy that, oh, our duel would have continued and maybe it could have gone either way, my face down would have just continued the game, or would his face down have actually won the duel for him? And you don't know, it could have gone either way. I definitely interpret it more as Kaiba, even if it didn't end, just the idea that Yugi came this close to defeating Kaiba shows that he is a rival worthy of taking on, and that it's not this rare opponent like Atem that he can basically face Yugi whenever. That is a rivalry that can just go on forever, basically. At the end of the movie, Kaiba does in fact meet a Tem. What he does is he uses technology in combination with the 8th Millennium item, which basically allows you to travel between dimensions, and he basically goes in this kind of pod through a portal and basically ends up in ancient Egypt, back in the time of the Pharaoh, and basically the implication is that he's gone back in time, and modern day Kaiba is about to duel ancient Egypt Atem, in some sort of a like combination of like Atem using shadow duels, shadow magic stuff, so many monsters from tablets, and Kaiba actually using the cards as a kind of final proof of that, and it's just a kind of meant to be a pretty big moment. So that was definitely fun. Other stuff within the movie, I was a little bit disappointed. One of my only disappointments with the movie was that Joey didn't get to duel. The problem with the reason this is such a problem for me is because in GX, Pegasus specifically says that like Joey is number 3 on my list of like my top 10 duelists. You know, first is Yugi, second is Kaiba, third is Joey, and Joey within this movie is one of the only members of the gang to basically say that my dream going forward is to become a pro duelist. Whereas everyone else has other goals, like Tristan's going to work in a factory, Teia's going to go off and become a dancer, like she said. Yugi wants to actually make his own game. Joey's the one who wants to be a duelist, yet he's the one who doesn't get to duel in this movie. And again, I think it comes down to the fact that the movie pack set is just Blue Eyes and Red Eyes stuff, plus a couple of other things. It's Blue Eyes and Dark Magician stuff. There's no Red Eyes stuff in the movie pack set. I don't know if that's the reason why he doesn't duel, but I suppose the idea would have been that they would then have 3 archetypes to have in the set rather than just 2, and that limits what they can do. But I still would have liked something where he maybe duels, wins a tournament, because we've never seen like Joey really like have get a huge victory within a tournament to kind of highlight the fact why he's number 3. So I would have liked something like that. And another thing was that they very much teased the idea that Yugi and Teia are in a relationship. Little moments of them kind of blushing and the way they kind of interact with each other, kind of highlight a closeness between the two. And I think that the whole like Teia kind of almost falling in love with Atem and then kind of realizing that Yugi and Atem are actually quite similar in the end. It was kind of meant to be something like that, but they never committed to it here. And I get it. I get in Yu-Gi-Oh! They never really do it. Like I suppose the closest we've ever come is Yusei and Akiza. So Alexis and Jaden, you knew it was like a relationship in the sense of like Alexis liked Jaden, but we never really knew if the other way was true as well. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a history of never really committing to the romances, but it was especially frustrating here in that like we were 6 months to a year removed from the end of the anime series and we still don't have anything going on. The most frustrating moment being the very end moment of when Teia's going off to America on a jet, and the goodbye to everyone. It's just a high five between the two. Nothing more than that there was a bigger connection between Teia and Yugi than anyone else. Nothing really like that. So that was a slight frustration, but overall I thought this movie was really, really good. As I said, the connection to the backstory of ancient Egypt, with Kaiba kind of being more accepting of it, getting Bakura's backstory, the villain Aigami's backstory, having Yugi really be a more confident character and kind of proving himself to Kaiba as like a worthy rival, and then Kaiba just all the one-liners, the funny moments with him, and then just him being the kind of driving force for the plot. I really do think this is a movie that if you're a fan of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, you need to watch this movie. Like, not every character is referenced, that like we don't get any Serenity, we don't see like Marek again, Ishizu or anything like that, but we get the majority of things, and I think it's really, really well done. So just going to end the review there. In the comments let me know if you've seen the movie, what your thoughts are on it. But yeah, other than that, I'll just say link to my Twitter and Tumblr, Patreon campaign and PayPal donation link are in the description below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.